Last week for the Bill 29, so to speak, the access to information committee, chaired by Cladwell. All right, so this one, boy, you figured that this would have got a fair bit of traction or reaction, given the fact, if I hear you all correctly, it's the PC government's lack of openness and transparency and the creation of Bill 29 that will be their undoing and their unraveling. It's gotten some attention. There's been a lot of people who chose to present from their perspective how Bill 29 has adversely affected how they do their business, whether it be journalists or what have you. And then, of course, the general public want to know, and they're right to know. So there's your last go-around, these several interesting presentations going on this week. Is that going to actually be a campaign issue this go-around? I don't know. The final report is due by November, well in advance of the next general election. Lots of opportunity. Whether or not people will forgive, so to speak, the PCs for whatever Bill 29 represents in your mind, well, that remains to be seen, and I have no idea. But until access to information, and we do know that many people are half-informed, we all know that Bill 29 is not what governs our access to NALCOR's books, Muskrat Falls and otherwise. So people make that mistake all the time, but I guess it's symbolic of how difficult it is to get the information we require to assess how government is doing business. That includes at our crown corporations. So until the Tories can address the information coming from NALCOR, specifically on Muskrat Falls, then none of this will do them any favors at the ballot box. That's people's number one concern. Now, getting redacted papers, dozens of pages that are pretty much full of black ink, and you can't see the particulars and the most concerning things in these ridiculous pieces of information that get released by government. Until it can be about Muskrat Falls, then I don't think the Tories are going to ever dig out from under that one. There's a specific piece of legislation that deals with Muskrat and NALCOR so far as the release of information. For the life of me, I cannot understand the political want to shield the public from that type of knowledge when that's the number one bugaboo that's holding back the government. The government has fallen prey to the standard and obvious and cyclical nature of politics when they talk about anything that they've done to laud themselves in their economics and their being the best stewards of the economy. If they cannot see past the fact that people will judge them and begrudge them based on the Muskrat Falls project and the need and the want to know all the particulars, not the vagaries of it, whether it be the recently announced power purchase agreement, of which is really hard to read, for starters, and it's hard to understand the particulars of it, especially when it comes to the backloading of the financing, the legitimate cost of electricity. Is it just enough to say that we accept that it'll be a 1 to 2% increase per annum based on the repayment? I don't really know. But until they see fit to come clean, in full, and I would suggest it requires, not because anyone thinks that there's anything criminal or untoward has happened, but why wouldn't any political party with any common sense, why not ask the Auditor General to do a specific one-off evaluation and investigation of NALCOR's businesses, including Muskrat Falls, before the next general election? Cards on the table. Let people judge it for what it is, as opposed to allowing people to think that you're hiding something. You tell us you're not, well then prove you're not. And on that point, for the Auditor General's work, the whole place came unhinged when it came to the PC leadership contest, and specifically regarding Mr. Frank Coleman. And then it was, of course, what is really hard to understand and seriously hard to accept, the rationale offered for why they were forgiven without penalty for the paving contract that was unsatisfied in Labrador, and then the return of the two bonds, which amount to almost $20 million. If the Auditor General's having a look, we were told that the big problem was there was a lack of documentation to support the government's position and or Humber Valley Paving's position. Well then, why is it taking so long? So I'd like to have a look at that. The problem is, will we ever get to the bottom of all of the personal one-on-one backroom conversations and the motivation and the reality of what really happened there? I don't know, but I'd sure like to see the report from the Auditor General. How about you? I'd also like to see government's review, their internal review of the fracking issue. You say it came up inconclusive. Well, Is it okay by you, considering the fact that we're the taxpayers, the citizens of the province, the folks on the West Coast who think they'll be the number one adversely affected part of the population if fracking proceeds, can you give us a gawk at the inconclusive documentation? At least let us judge what conclusions were drawn. It was always going to follow the boilerplate. The internal review is going to be followed by an external review because people have screamed long and hard for the external review. So it was inevitable it was going to happen. So even if you're playing along, footloose and fancy-free, or providing political smoke screens and window dressing, let us evaluate it. Why not? There's a lot of concerned citizens who have done a lot of research and understanding of the concept of hydraulic fracturing. Let's have a look. Why not? You got it done. We paid for it. So how about having a look at it? Be fine with me. I briefly mentioned the power purchase agreement for Muskrat Falls. That has indeed been signed. And that's only to recognize that us Newfoundland and Labradorian ratepayers, those who have access to the Muskrat Falls power, we're going to pay for it lock, stock, and barrel. Now, that's basically what it represents, but some of the details would be nice to know. I would like to know also from the PC leadership candidates their position, not only, Muskrat Falls, it's going to happen no matter what. People can call to the end of time for the Liberals or the NDP to put forward some sort of proposal or platform that includes nixing the project. It ain't happening. We'll have to put up with the, we're the best ones to serve for the oversight and management of the project. Yes, by why? No one's going to answer the why. That might be their assertion, but that's all they've got to offer on that front. But this power purchase agreement, and little specifics like, if we get to sell any power elsewhere, which we do, don't believe anyone who tells you we can't sell the power, because we can. Whether it be at a loss, as you are referred to, that's one thing, and I agree with you on that front. We'll sell it for less than the cost to generate. I'd like to know what the leadership candidates know and understand and are willing to talk about the specifics of the power purchase agreement. It's the biggest yoke around our neck, albeit for the money you get to flick on a light, but you know the deal. Also, on full disclosure, this is an interesting part of the leadership campaign stuff too. So the Tories have a spending limit for the three gentlemen involved. That's, what was it, $325,000 or something, which is disgraceful. Give me a break. How and why should it be acceptable in the first place for a leadership campaign which only panders to your own faithful supporters? How can you justifiably spend that much money? Now I don't care if you have fundraisers that are $1,000 a plate or $1,000 a pig in a blanket and a couple of cocktails, which, my God, imagine being someone who wants to pay $1,000 for that. Or a $2,500 same excursion, and maybe get some bacon wrapped scallop at $2,500, I don't know. But that's all nuts. But the PCs have indeed said full disclosure can be anticipated and will happen so far as the spending of all three candidates, how much anybody gave and who that person is. This is very much unlike the Liberals' process, though. Now, a lot of you out there think the Liberals did it the right way. They toured the entire province. They allowed people to sign up online and what have you. Some 22,000 people took advantage of it. So they say that that represents speaking to the masses. Even though we've known, and there's been stories came from it, that PC supporters were actually signed up as Liberals and clicked they vote for who the hell ever they chose. I'll find that. But when it comes to the full disclosure piece, and who you think are accountable, and who you think are beholden to any one entity or company or lobby group, the Liberals really do take some of their sting out of their attack on the PCs unless the leadership candidates come completely clean, full disclosure on their campaign donations. How can it be viewed any other way? A couple of the candidates showed their hand, but three of them didn't. Now, you told us how much you brought in roundabout numbers, but you certainly didn't tell us who gave you all the money. That is, once again, for the Liberals, if you want to have the full sting on the campaign trail available for accountability, then you've got to disclose. They have to do it. If not, it will dog them. Why? Because we all think the same thing. If I give $100 to a political candidate, I can't expect much in return. Maybe an invite to their friggin' mixer at Christmas, and so what? But when companies are willing to pony up to $10,000 and then go back to the well in the general campaign, give them another large donation, we all think it comes with a caveat. Whether or not that's true, that's how people think. And so if the Liberal candidates do not release where their big donations came from, especially at the corporate level, people will be cynical. It's once again the short-sightedness and the stupidity sometimes that really overpowers politicians, their parties, and their strategists, which are not very wise, if you ask me. Anyway.